There is a kind of strength that no weapon can wound and no darkness can overcome. It is not born in comfort, nor is it given by circumstance. It is built, tested, and refined in the quiet furnace of the soul. The measure of one's true strength is not how loudly one declares confidence, but how calmly one endures the storm that questions it. A strong mindset is not arrogance masked as courage. It is the steady knowing that even in the valley, light remains. The mind, when rightly trained, does not shatter under pressure. It learns to bend without breaking, to see beyond fear, and to choose faith when reason fails to see the way forward. To build such a mind, one must first learn the art of stillness. The world teaches noise. It glorifies haste and confuses motion with progress. Yet the strongest minds are not found in the clamor of activity, but in the deep wells of reflection. It is in solitude that the roots of strength grow, for there the soul learns to converse with truth. Discipline of thought begins when the heart stops chasing every distraction and learns instead to listen. A person who cannot govern their thoughts will forever be governed by their emotions. And so, the first lesson of a strong mind is mastery, not of the world, but of oneself. The mind is like a sword. It dulls in idleness and sharpens only when challenged. Every hardship that comes your way is not a punishment, but a polishing. The struggle you wish to avoid is often the very force that would make you unbreakable. If one seeks an easy life, one will gain only a fragile mind. But if one welcomes challenge, one gains the resilience of steel. The trials that seem unbearable are the very teachers that carve courage into your character. The formula for strength, therefore, is hidden in the paradox. Those who suffer with meaning grow stronger than those who live in comfort without it. Yet, strength alone is not enough. It must be guided by humility. Determination without humility becomes tyranny of the self. The strong mind knows not only how to stand firm, but when to kneel, to submit to wisdom, to admit fault, to learn and be corrected. These are not signs of weakness, but proof of true power. The one who bows before truth will rise above circumstance. Pride builds walls around the mind. Humility opens the gates of understanding. A mind filled with pride resists growth, but a humble heart welcomes transformation. The will must be strong, but it must also be pure. In the journey of mental fortitude, self-control is the bridge between intention and fulfillment. Determination is not loud. It does not boast or demand recognition. It is quiet, consistent, unshaken. It is the force that carries one through long nights of doubt and days of weariness. The determined mind does not wait for motivation. It moves because it must, because it is bound by purpose, not emotion. It is easy to act when the heart feels inspired, but true strength acts even when the heart feels nothing. The strong mind does not chase comfort. It chases calling. And above all, the strongest mind is one that knows its source. Human will is finite, but the power that flows through faith is eternal. When a person roots their determination in a truth greater than themselves, fear loses its dominion. The storms still come, but they no longer control the direction of the soul. The truly strong do not merely endure life, they transform it. Their faith gives meaning to their pain, their discipline gives shape to their purpose, and their humility keeps them from falling into vanity. This is the formula for a strong mindset: stillness that listens, endurance that perseveres, humility that learns, and faith that leads. For it is not the world that makes a person strong, it is the mind that chooses how to see it. The body may tire, the path may darken, but the spirit that refuses to surrender remains unconquered. Strength is not a gift to be received, it is a truth to be lived, and when you begin to live by that truth, no mountain will be too high, no night too long, and no fear too deep, for the strength within will always outshine the storm without. Inner strength through awareness and purpose is not a trait we are born with. It is a discipline that must be learned, tested, and refined through the quiet trials of life. The human mind, left untended, becomes a field of wandering thoughts, where fear, doubt, and insecurity take root. But when awareness enters, it brings light to this field, allowing one to see what grows there. Awareness is not merely noticing, it is understanding. It is the recognition of one's internal world, the thoughts that drive actions, the emotions that color perception, and the beliefs that quietly shape destiny. Without awareness, strength is blind. It may act, but it acts without direction. With awareness, however, strength becomes guided. It transforms into purposeful resilience, a force that knows not only how to endure, but also why it must. The journey toward inner strength begins with the courage to look inward. Most people spend their lives fighting the external world, trying to control circumstances, change others, or escape pain. Yet the real battle, the one that defines who we are, is fought within. Awareness is the sword that allows us to engage in that battle wisely. It reveals that much of our suffering does not come from what happens to us, but from how we interpret it. The strong mind does not allow every thought to dictate its peace. It chooses which thoughts to serve and which to silence. Awareness teaches that emotions, though powerful, are not commands. They are signals. Fear, anger, and sadness are not enemies to be crushed, but messengers that reveal what the soul truly values or fears losing. To become aware is to become free, for one cannot master what one does not first observe. Once awareness awakens, purpose must give it direction. Awareness without purpose is like light without focus, beautiful but scattered. Purpose gathers the fragments of the mind and aligns them toward a single point of meaning. It is the compass that prevents strength from turning into chaos. Many people are determined, but not purposeful. They strive endlessly, but toward goals that do not satisfy the deeper hunger of their souls. A strong mindset does not come from mere persistence. It comes from persistence guided by vision. Purpose gives the will something sacred to fight for. It transforms endurance from a burden into a privilege, for when one knows why they endure, even the hardest road becomes bearable. Purpose is what turns pain into progress and failure into fuel. Awareness and purpose together form the twin pillars of mental strength. Awareness grounds the mind in truth, purpose lifts it toward meaning. One without the other leaves imbalance. A person who has awareness but no purpose may understand themselves deeply yet drift without direction. A person who has purpose but no awareness may move fiercely but blindly, often destroying what they seek to build. True strength lies in their union, the mind that sees clearly and the heart that knows where it must go. This union allows a person to act with calm conviction, even when surrounded by uncertainty. It is this balance that transforms ordinary endurance into graceful strength. To cultivate awareness, one must learn to be still. The world around us is designed to pull our minds outward, to keep us reacting, consuming, comparing. Yet strength begins when the noise fades and one learns to watch the mind in silence. In that quiet observation, one begins to see patterns. The self-doubt that always whispers before risk, the defensiveness that arises from old wounds, the excuses that mask fear as reason. Awareness does not judge these things, it merely sees them. And in seeing, it weakens their control. The strong mind does not suppress weakness, it understands it, accepts it, and then chooses differently. Every act of conscious choice strengthens the mind's foundation, for it proves that thought and reaction are not the same as truth. Purpose, on the other hand, must be discovered through reflection and alignment with one's deepest values. It cannot be borrowed from others or built upon temporary desires. The purpose that fuels strength must be rooted in something enduring. something that gives meaning even when success or recognition fade. This kind of purpose often reveals itself through struggle, when all superficial ambitions are stripped away and one must ask, why continue? Those who find a worthy answer to that question become unshakable. For once the why is strong enough, the how becomes merely a matter of time and perseverance. Purpose is what keeps the flame alive when inspiration dies and effort feels empty. It whispers to the weary mind, there is meaning in this pain. And that whisper alone can move mountains within. Mental strength born of awareness and purpose is not loud or dramatic. It is steady, humble, and enduring. It does not seek attention, it seeks alignment. Such strength allows a person to remain unmoved by flattery or criticism alike, for their sense of direction is inwardly fixed. Awareness teaches them that both praise and blame are passing winds. Purpose reminds them of the mountain they are climbing. Together, they create a peace that is not the absence of difficulty, but the mastery of it. A person anchored in awareness and purpose can face chaos without losing clarity, because they know who they are and why they stand. Their mind becomes a fortress, not built of pride, but of presence. When life shakes such a person, they do not fall apart, they realign. When they fail, they do not despair, they learn. And when they succeed, they do not become arrogant, they remain grounded in truth. Awareness keeps them humble, for it shows them their flaws. Purpose keeps them strong, for it reminds them of their calling. This balance is the formula for inner strength, a state where the storms of life no longer dictate direction, and where the mind, anchored in clarity and driven by meaning, becomes an instrument of quiet, unstoppable power. Endurance in adversity is the truest test of mental strength, for the worth of one's mind is revealed not in moments of peace, but in the fires of difficulty. It is easy to appear strong when life is gentle, when everything aligns with expectation and comfort cushions the soul. But real fortitude is proven when all that once felt stable begins to crumble, when hope seems distant and every step forward demands an act of will. Adversity does not create weakness, it exposes it. Yet, in that exposure lies the chance for transformation. Those who understand the purpose of endurance see hardship not as punishment, but as preparation. They know that the mind, like metal, gains its resilience only through the heat of refinement. Every struggle, every heartbreak, every disappointment becomes a forge where character is shaped and strength is born. Endurance is not passive waiting, it is active perseverance. It is the art of holding one's ground when retreat seems easier, of continuing to move when the weight of fatigue presses heavily upon the soul. There is a difference between merely surviving and enduring. Survival is the instinct of the body. It clings to life out of fear of loss. Endurance, however, is the choice of the spirit. It perseveres because it sees meaning beyond the pain. When the mind learns to endure with purpose, suffering no longer feels empty. It becomes a lesson, a teacher that shapes perception and fortifies resolve. The one who endures learns patience, learns humility, and above all, learns control. The control to remain calm while chaos surrounds, to choose gratitude when the world seems cruel, and to find light in the smallest glimmer of hope. Every strong mind must walk through seasons of darkness. There is no growth in perpetual comfort, for comfort breeds stagnation. The soil of the mind must be turned and disturbed before new strength can take root. Those who try to escape struggle rob themselves of the chance to mature. The pain we wish away often contains the wisdom we most need. Endurance is not about denying the reality of suffering. It is about confronting it without surrendering to despair. When one endures, one does not say, "This does not hurt." One says, "This will not defeat me." That is the subtle but powerful difference between those who are broken by life and those who are built by it. The same storm that destroys one person can awaken the strength of another. The difference lies in the spirit's decision to endure. Adversity is also the great equalizer. It strips away illusion and pride, reminding us that strength is not found in titles, wealth, or reputation, but in the quiet resilience of the soul. When comfort fades, when applause falls silent, what remains is the inner will. Those who cultivate endurance discover that pain, while unwelcome, is honest. It demands authenticity. It shows what one truly believes, how deeply one's faith and purpose run. Many speak of determination when the path is smooth, but only those who endure know the cost of true perseverance. The world honors achievement, but endurance honors truth, for it is in the hidden hours of pain, when no one watches, when progress seems invisible, that greatness begins its slow and silent work. To endure does not mean to become numb. The strongest minds are not those that feel nothing, but those that feel deeply and continue regardless. Endurance is emotional courage. It allows one to sit with fear, disappointment, and uncertainty without being consumed by them. It is the ability to suffer with awareness, to feel pain without letting it poison the soul. This kind of endurance is not cold, it is compassionate. It understands that strength is not hardness, but stability. That one can be soft in heart and strong in spirit at the same time. Such balance gives endurance its quiet dignity, for it carries pain not with bitterness but with grace. It does not curse the difficulty, it uses it as a path toward deeper understanding. A mind trained in endurance begins to see adversity differently. What once felt unbearable becomes an opportunity for refinement. Challenges cease to be enemies and become teachers. Every setback reveals new capacities for patience, and every obstacle uncovers new reserves of will. The one who endures learns that growth rarely announces itself with triumph. It often arrives disguised as struggle. Endurance, therefore, is faith in motion. It believes that beyond the hardship lies transformation, even when the evidence has yet to appear. Such a mind does not ask, "Why must this happen to me?" but rather, "What strength is this moment calling me to build?" In that question lies wisdom, and in wisdom lies freedom from despair. Those who endure become unshakable, not because they avoid pain, but because they learn to coexist with it. They do not rely on the promise of ease to maintain their strength. Their strength is drawn from the certainty that they can withstand whatever comes. When one endures long enough, fear begins to lose its grip. For what can frighten the soul that has already walked through fire and remained standing? Endurance reveals to the mind its own immortality, its own unyielding nature. It shows that pain is temporary but perseverance eternal, that defeat is only final when one refuses to rise again. The beauty of endurance lies in its quietness. It does not shout or boast. It simply remains. It waits, works, and believes. There is power in such constancy, for it outlasts every storm. The strong mind does not crumble under pressure, because it has learned that hardship is not a signal to stop, but an invitation to evolve. When faced with trials, endurance whispers, "Stay," and that single word becomes a wall against despair. The one who stays, who continues through doubt, fatigue, and sorrow, discovers a strength that no comfort could ever teach. For endurance is not merely surviving pain, it is transforming it into wisdom, turning wounds into wisdom, and turning resistance into resilience. In the end, endurance is the quiet force that keeps the human spirit alive when everything else demands it to fall. Discipline and self-mastery are the pillars upon which a strong mindset is built, for without them, even the greatest dreams collapse under the weight of inconsistency. The mind, left undisciplined, becomes a restless servant of impulse, drifting wherever emotion blows, surrendering to distraction and abandoning purpose at the first sign of difficulty. Discipline transforms chaos into order. It brings the scattered fragments of thought and will into harmony. Self-mastery is the quiet strength that allows a person to choose direction when every feeling demands surrender. It is not about harsh control, but about alignment. Aligning one's actions with one's higher principles, rather than the fleeting urges of the moment. The strong mind does not seek to suppress emotion, but to guide it, to let reason and purpose govern where passion alone might destroy. True discipline begins with awareness of the small choices, for greatness is not built in grand moments, but in countless unseen decisions. The way one rises from bed, speaks to others, manages time, or confronts discomfort. These small habits become the architecture of strength. A person who waits for motivation will never sustain progress. The disciplined one acts because the act itself is necessary. Discipline replaces inspiration with integrity. It says, "I will do what must be done," even when desire fades. This constancy, practiced daily, becomes an armor against inconsistency. The disciplined mind is not enslaved by moods. It learns to act rightly even when it feels wrongly, to keep moving when the heart is weary, and to hold silence when anger demands a voice. Self-mastery deepens where discipline matures. It is not the suppression of human feeling, but the ability to steer one's emotions toward a chosen end. A weak mind reacts, a strong one responds. Self-mastery teaches that one cannot control the world, but can always control the self. Attitude, thought, and action remain sovereign territory. When criticism comes, self-mastery does not lash out in defense. It listens, discerns, and chooses calm over chaos. When temptation whispers to take the easy path, it answers with steadfastness, for it knows that every moment of indulgence weakens the will, while every moment of restraint strengthens it. The mind that masters itself becomes free, not because it avoids hardship, but because it refuses to be governed by it. Discipline and self-mastery together form the bridge between intention and accomplishment. Many people have vision but lack structure. They dream without discipline, hoping emotion alone will sustain them. But purpose without self-control is like a ship without a rudder. Drifting endlessly in search of a destination it will never reach. The disciplined mind builds daily habits around its purpose, understanding that structure liberates rather than confines. The will grows stronger when exercised, just as muscles do when placed under resistance. Every act of discipline, whether in thought, word, or deed, is a repetition that shapes identity. The person who consistently practices restraint, focus, and perseverance becomes a master of their fate, not by chance, but by choice. The challenge of self-mastery lies in confronting the inner voice of resistance. It is the voice that says, "Tomorrow will be better," "You deserve a rest," or "This is too hard." The disciplined mind recognizes this voice not as truth, but as the cunning disguise of comfort. Comfort has destroyed more potential than failure ever will. Those who seek ease above all else find themselves enslaved by the very comfort they chase. Self-mastery is the art of saying no to what feels good now, so one may say yes to what is best later. This resistance is painful, but within that pain lies freedom. Every time one chooses discipline over impulse, the mind grows stronger, more stable, and more capable of withstanding the pressures of life. To master oneself is also to master time. The disciplined person values each moment as an opportunity to grow, refusing to waste energy on trivial distractions. They understand that time lost to idleness is not merely minutes wasted but strength diminished. Self-mastery requires order, a structure to one's day, purpose to one's work, and clarity in one's thought. This order does not suffocate creativity, it amplifies it. A disciplined mind can channel imagination into form and bring ideas into existence because it has learned to focus powerfully without scattering attention. In contrast, the undisciplined mind, though filled with potential, remains powerless, forever pulled in conflicting directions, forever chasing novelty without completion. Emotional discipline is perhaps the highest form of mastery, to remain calm in provocation, patient in delay, and hopeful in despair is not weakness but wisdom. Life continually presents moments designed to provoke reaction, yet the disciplined soul sees beyond the immediate. It asks, "What will this reaction create?" And in that pause, wisdom is born. The strong mind does not suppress emotion. It observes, understands, and directs it toward productive ends. Anger becomes motivation to act justly, sadness becomes empathy, and fear becomes alertness. Through self-mastery, even negative emotions are transformed into instruments of growth. This alchemy of the spirit, turning chaos into clarity, is what defines mental strength. Discipline also teaches respect for limits. The self-mastered individual understands that not every battle must be fought, not every opinion voiced, not every desire fulfilled. Strength is not measured by how much one can take, but by how wisely one expends energy. Knowing when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent, is the sign of a mind that governs itself fully. Such restraint is not repression. It is discernment, the ability to choose battles that matter and release those that do not. Through this discernment, peace is maintained, and energy is reserved for what truly aligns with one's purpose. The disciplined and self-mastered person carries a quiet confidence. Their actions are deliberate, their words considered, their demeanor calm. They are not ruled by the noise of the world because they have learned to command the noise within. Where others react, they reflect. Where others waver, they stand firm. Their consistency inspires trust because it reflects integrity, a harmony between thought, word, and deed. They have learned that mastery over the self is mastery over life, for everything external is only as strong as the mind that faces it. And so, through discipline and self-mastery, one builds not merely a mindset but a fortress, one that no storm, no temptation, no failure can easily breach. Humility as the root of power is one of the most paradoxical truths of human strength. To the untrained eye, humility may seem like submission or weakness, yet it is the very foundation upon which all enduring power stands. True humility is not the denial of strength, but the recognition of its source. It understands that wisdom is never complete, that every achievement still leaves room for learning, and that the greatest authority belongs to the one who has mastered the art of listening. Power without humility becomes corruption, strength without humility becomes pride, and pride is the silent destroyer of the mind's greatness. Humility allows strength to breathe. It keeps ambition from becoming arrogance and confidence from turning into conceit. It reminds the soul that greatness is not found in being above others, but in being in service to truth, purpose, and growth. A humble mind is a teachable mind. It does not assume it knows everything, nor does it cling to its opinions as though they were sacred. It welcomes correction, for it sees every new perspective as an opportunity for refinement. Those who lack humility build walls around their understanding and imprison themselves in ignorance, mistaking certainty for wisdom. The humble person, however, knows that even after years of experience, there remains a vast horizon of truth yet unseen. This awareness of one's own limitation is not weakness. It is clarity. It frees the mind from the illusion of perfection and opens the heart to endless learning. In humility, the mind becomes flexible, it adapts, it grows, and it continues to evolve long after prideful minds have stagnated. Humility is also the quiet guard of peace. When one lives without it, life becomes a constant struggle to prove worth, to be right, to be noticed, to be superior. But the humble mind has nothing to prove and thus remains unbothered by comparison. It understands that the value of a person is not determined by the measure of applause, but by the depth of character. The strong yet humble person does not compete to outshine others. They compete only to outgrow themselves. This detachment from ego allows true confidence to emerge, a calm, steady assurance not rooted in external validation, but in internal truth. Pride seeks recognition, humility seeks righteousness. The one who walks humbly moves with quiet confidence, because they no longer need the world's approval to affirm their worth. In times of conflict, humility becomes the strongest form of wisdom. It prevents anger from becoming destruction and turns disagreement into dialogue. The humble person does not react to every insult or challenge, for they understand that responding to provocation with rage is a confession of insecurity. Humility allows one to see beyond the ego's urge for victory and instead seek understanding. It gives the strength to admit when one is wrong, the grace to forgive when wronged, and the patience to wait for truth to reveal itself without force. Such restraint is not passivity, it is mastery, for it takes more strength to control one's pride than to conquer another person. The humble mind knows that power gained through domination is temporary, but power maintained through integrity is eternal. Humility and strength coexist in perfect harmony because humility gives strength its direction. A powerful person without humility is like a river without banks. It may rush with force, but it soon floods and destroys. Humility acts as the channel that guides power toward purpose. It reminds the strong to use their influence not for self-glory but for service. The truly powerful are not those who make others feel small, but those who lift others higher through their strength. In humility, leadership transforms from control into guidance, from authority into stewardship. The leader who kneels before truth commands more respect than one who stands on pride. This is the kind of quiet influence that changes hearts and shapes destinies, not by demand, but by example. Humility is also the mirror that reveals the soul. It compels one to face the truth of who they are, both light and shadow. Pride hides weakness, humility confronts it. It does not fear imperfection, for it knows that awareness of flaw is the beginning of growth. The humble person acknowledges mistakes without shame and corrects them without resistance. They see failure not as humiliation but as a sacred teacher. In this way, humility becomes a constant companion to resilience, for it keeps the spirit grounded even as it climbs higher. Pride inflates, humility anchors. The deeper one's humility, the greater their ability to rise without losing balance. In relationships, humility is the silent force that preserves connection. It allows one to listen more than speak, to understand before judging, and to love without demand. The proud person seeks to be admired. The humble one seeks to understand. Where pride builds distance, humility builds bridges. It softens the heart, makes room for empathy, and restores harmony in moments of tension. To say, "I may be wrong," or "I understand your pain," are acts of quiet courage that only humility can give. Such words may seem small, but they carry immense power, the power to heal, to unite, and to transform. Humility disarms hostility and invites understanding, turning conflict into communion. The relationship between humility and wisdom is inseparable. Wisdom enters only where pride exits. Pride claims knowledge as ownership. Humility treats it as stewardship. The wise do not boast about what they know. They seek what they do not yet understand. This continuous seeking keeps their minds young and their spirits alive. The humble mind approaches every person and every experience as a teacher, knowing that truth often hides in unexpected places. Through humility, wisdom deepens, not as accumulation of facts, but as sensitivity to meaning, a sense of harmony with the larger truths that govern existence. Ultimately, humility transforms how one relates to life itself. It teaches that we are not masters of the world, but participants in a greater order. It brings reverence to action, patience to progress, and grace to success, When humility takes root, gratitude blossoms naturally. The humble mind recognizes that every opportunity, every gift, every moment of triumph is part of something greater than personal effort alone. This gratitude nourishes peace within, for it replaces entitlement with appreciation. The truly strong are humble because they understand the weight of power. They know that real greatness is not loud, not boastful, but deeply grounded in truth. Humility, then, is not weakness bowed before strength. It is strength bowed before wisdom. It is the invisible crown worn by those whose hearts remain steady, even when the world trembles before them. Determination beyond emotion is the mark of a mind that has learned to rise above the ebb and flow of feeling. Emotions are powerful. They ignite passion, inspire movement, and give color to human experience. But when left ungoverned, they can also derail focus, distort judgment, and enslave the will. Determination that depends on emotion will always be unstable, for feelings are fleeting. They change with circumstances, weather, and even the opinions of others. A truly strong mind does not wait to feel ready before acting. It acts because the action aligns with purpose. It continues forward not because the heart feels inspired, but because the will has decided that quitting is not an option. Such determination is the steady flame that burns when all other lights have gone out, the silent resolve that carries one through long nights of uncertainty and days of unseen labor. To act beyond emotion requires the discipline of detachment, the ability to acknowledge feelings without becoming enslaved by them. It is not a cold suppression of emotion, but a wise partnership with it. The determined mind listens to emotion, but does not let emotion lead. When fear whispers of failure, the mind hears it, respects its warning, yet continues forward, because conviction outweighs doubt. When excitement fades and monotony sets in, determination keeps the hand steady, the effort constant. Those who achieve greatness are not those who are always motivated, but those who remain faithful when motivation disappears. They understand that inspiration is a guest that visits occasionally, while commitment is a companion that must walk with them daily. Determination beyond emotion also demands clarity of purpose. Without a clear why, endurance becomes fragile. Purpose anchors the will when feelings try to drift it away. A person driven by emotion alone will move quickly, but inconsistently, starting with great enthusiasm and stopping at the first resistance. But the one guided by purpose and determination moves steadily, knowing that every step, however small, contributes to something lasting. They do not measure progress by the thrill of achievement, but by the quiet satisfaction of persistence. Emotion seeks comfort, determination seeks completion. The difference lies in where one places trust, on the fleeting comfort of feeling good, or the enduring strength of doing good. When determination governs the mind, setbacks no longer carry the power to paralyze. Emotion reacts to failure with discouragement, shame, or anger, but determination interprets failure as feedback. It learns, adjusts, and tries again. The emotionally driven person sees difficulty as a sign to stop. The determined one sees it as a signal to grow. Each obstacle becomes a mirror reflecting the depth of commitment. Adversity tests whether one's will is rooted in feeling or in faith. Those who endure discover that true progress is rarely accompanied by comfort. It often feels like walking through fog, unsure of direction but trusting in the compass of purpose. The determined spirit does not need to see the whole path. It needs only to take the next step with conviction. There is a quiet heroism in doing what must be done, even when the heart is tired. Determination beyond emotion is not loud or dramatic. It is steady, patient, and often unseen. It wakes early when comfort says sleep. It continues working when recognition is absent. It forgives when anger demands revenge, and keeps faith when logic argues otherwise. Such resolve cannot be taught by comfort. It is born in difficulty, shaped in repetition, and strengthened by persistence. The person who learns to act rightly even in the absence of feeling becomes invincible, for nothing external can dictate their direction. They move not by impulse but by principle, not by emotion but by conviction. This kind of determination also transforms one's relationship with time. Emotional thinkers live in the present moment's highs and lows, reacting to whatever they feel now. The determined thinker lives in alignment with the long view, guided by what must be accomplished regardless of present discomfort. They do not rush to escape pain, nor do they cling to fleeting joy. Instead, they move forward with balance. They understand that emotion is a wave, temporary, unpredictable, and ever-changing, while will is the current beneath it, constant and deep. To navigate life successfully, one must learn to ride emotion without losing control to it. The will remains the helm that directs the ship, even when the seas of feeling rise and fall. Determination beyond emotion requires maturity, for it asks the mind to do what the heart sometimes resists. To keep promises when the excitement of making them has faded, to remain loyal when passion grows cold, to persist when reward seems distant. It means doing the hard thing not because it feels good, but because it is right. This maturity separates the impulsive from the purposeful, the wishful from the steadfast. The emotional person says, "I'll try if I feel like it." The determined person says, "I'll do it because I must." That single shift from emotion to willpower changes the entire course of one's destiny. There is also deep emotional intelligence hidden within this kind of determination. By refusing to be ruled by feelings, one actually begins to understand them more clearly. The determined mind does not reject emotion, it observes it with compassion. It recognizes that emotion is a signal, not a sentence. Fear may warn of danger, but it cannot define one's limits. Sadness may slow the pace, but it cannot erase the purpose. Anger may ignite passion, but it must be directed wisely to avoid destruction. The wise and determined individual becomes both strong and kind, firm in action but gentle in understanding. Their steadiness does not make them heartless, it makes them dependable. The power of determination beyond emotion lies in its ability to remain consistent through every season of life. When others rise and fall with their moods, the determined person continues the work. When enthusiasm wanes, they rely on discipline. When doubt creeps in, they turn to faith. Such constancy builds not only achievement, but character. It forges a spirit that is resilient under pressure and calm in uncertainty. The determined mind does not need external validation, because it is fueled by internal conviction. It has learned the secret that emotion may start the journey, but only willpower finishes it. In the end, determination beyond emotion becomes a form of spiritual strength, the alignment of action with principle, regardless of feeling. It is the victory of purpose over impulse, of truth over desire. Those who cultivate it become the steady ones, the people who can be trusted when others falter, who can lead when others lose heart. They are not immune to emotion, they simply refuse to be controlled by it. Their strength lies not in constant excitement, but in unwavering commitment. Mental strength grows through surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of resistance to the inevitable tides of life. True resilience does not come from constant struggle or endless control. It emerges from the acceptance of what cannot be changed and the mastery of how one responds to it. The strongest minds are not those that never bend, but those that bend without breaking. They have learned the art of yielding with purpose, of flowing like a river that meets the rock not with defiance, but with persistence, shaping it over time. To surrender is not to quit, it is to stop wasting energy fighting what is, so that energy may be directed toward what can be. The one who surrenders wisely learns to work with life instead of against it, finding strength in stillness and power in patience. There is a profound difference between giving up and letting go. Giving up comes from despair. It is the language of one who no longer believes in meaning. Letting go, however, is the wisdom of one who trusts that meaning exists even in uncertainty. When the mind releases its grip on control, it becomes free to focus on growth. It stops demanding that the world align perfectly with its expectations and begins to align itself with the truth of reality. This surrender transforms suffering into insight. Every disappointment becomes a teacher, every delay a lesson in timing, every loss a revelation of what truly matters. The strong mind does not resist change. It grows through it, allowing every challenge to deepen its patience and refine its character. To surrender for strength requires faith in something larger than the self. It means trusting that even when plans fall apart, life continues to weave purpose through the fragments. The mind that tries to control everything lives in constant tension, fearing that any deviation from the plan is disaster. But the one who has learned to surrender walks calmly through uncertainty, knowing that not every unanswered question is a threat. They have come to see that the unpredictable is not the enemy of progress, but its necessary companion. Surrender brings humility, and humility brings perspective. When the mind stops demanding to be in charge of every outcome, it becomes receptive to wisdom greater than its own understanding. Surrender also dissolves the illusion of perfection. Many people exhaust themselves trying to appear unshakable, to prove their worth through relentless effort. Yet the strongest souls are often those who admit their limits and rest when they must. Mental strength is not about enduring every storm in stoic silence. It is about knowing when to anchor and when to drift. To surrender is to admit, I cannot control the wind, but I can adjust my sails. It is to accept that vulnerability is not weakness, but a deeper kind of courage. The courage to be open, to trust, and to continue despite not having all the answers. The mind that surrenders does not collapse. It breathes, releases, and regains clarity. This surrender becomes the foundation of endurance. Those who refuse to yield eventually break under pressure. Those who surrender with wisdom bend and rise again. Like the reed that survives the storm while the rigid tree falls, flexibility becomes the expression of strength. When one accepts that setbacks are part of the path, they stop treating every difficulty as a verdict on their worth. Instead, they see struggle as a sculptor, shaping the raw material of their character. Through surrender, frustration transforms into focus. Energy, once spent in resistance, is redirected toward perseverance. The mind learns to move forward not through force but through flow, adapting, evolving, and persisting with grace. Surrender also deepens emotional intelligence. When one stops fighting reality, they begin to see it clearly. The noise of fear quiets, and the wisdom beneath it emerges. Acceptance does not erase pain, but it removes the bitterness that comes from denial. A surrendered mind can face loss without resentment, change without panic, and uncertainty without despair. It understands that control is an illusion and that peace lies in the response, not the outcome. When control slips from the hands of the fearful, they panic. When it slips from the hands of the surrendered, they pray, breathe, and adjust. This serenity does not come from apathy. It is born from trust, the deep knowing that one's worth and destiny are not undone by the unexpected. The paradox of surrender is that it often leads to greater power. When the mind releases the need to dominate life, it discovers a new kind of influence, the influence of presence, awareness, and faith. The surrendered person becomes adaptable, and adaptability is the highest form of intelligence. They do not waste energy on resistance, they channel it toward purpose. When faced with hardship, they do not ask, "Why me?" but rather, "What can this teach me?" Their surrender is active, not passive. It transforms every difficulty into a tool for growth. This state of being allows the mind to remain steady even in chaos, for it no longer ties peace to circumstance. Surrender also cultivates gratitude, which strengthens mental resilience. When the mind ceases to demand perfection, it begins to appreciate progress. When it stops clinging to what has been lost, it learns to value what remains. Gratitude turns surrender from resignation into reverence. It shifts the focus from what is missing to what is meaningful. Through this lens, every moment becomes an opportunity to practice grace. Even in hardship, the surrendered mind finds reasons to be thankful. For lessons learned, for strength gained, for the simple gift of endurance. Gratitude becomes the quiet power that steadies the soul, reminding it that even pain can carry purpose. Finally, surrender transforms the very nature of strength itself. It replaces the brittle pride of control with the enduring courage of trust. It teaches that the mind is not defeated by what it releases but renewed through it. When one lets go of the need to control every outcome, they become free to master their response to all outcomes. This is the heart of true mental strength. To walk through the uncertainties of life with peace, to yield without losing purpose, and to trust that even surrender can serve as the pathway to victory. The strongest minds are not those who conquer everything. They are those who learn that sometimes the greatest triumph lies in knowing when to let go.